What's up, guys? Pittsburgh White Shorts back again with yet another Rush Rundown. This time we're going to go over To Love Ru in the English competitive metagame. This will be a quick, concise overview of To Love Ru's strengths, weaknesses, and notable cards that you need to know in order to effectively play into it, all in 10 minutes or less. While these aren't meant to be totally comprehensive, we've included a lot of information in this video about TLR, so feel free to pause and read the slides if I'm moving a bit too fast, because I'm going to blow right through this one. Getting right into it. To Love Ru used to be one of the strongest decks in the English metagame. Not so much anymore, but the deck still has legs. It plays a normal game at level 1 with a Shimikaze on reverse combo that gets a little bit bigger than normal with some support, as well as a cancel burn stacking finisher with their Yami that is also costless, as well as threatening with money counter. Pretty good endgame, even by today's standards. They also have a field encore that lets them loop that at every level, starting at level 1. So level 1 and level 3, they can just do it to you again. Most popular build will fish for reverses level 1 with that Mikon combo, which is the Shimikaze that I just talked about. And the Yami at the top is pretty much non-interactive, especially because it has hexproof. So there's not a lot of ways for you to make sure that its effect doesn't go off. Getting into the cards, we have the Yami herself. So this was one of the most powerful finishers back in the day. It's a draw 2, ditch 1 cantrip, digs into her on climax, digs into money counter for 2-turn kills. Those stacked cancel burns can be really aggressive pushes for game. Even though the deck is trying to 2-turn you, it's still really aggressive pushes in open lanes, and depending on your deck state, you might be eating a lot of damage. They can actually change into this at level 1 with this card over on the left here. It's really costly and requires them to put a climax into their clock, so you don't see it that often, but it is something that they can do, and because the card is hexproof, you're not going to be able to use anti-change counter on it, which is pretty nasty. Moving on, we have the 1/1 Field Encore. This is a big reason why the deck is still around. This card is super nasty, and there's a big reason they don't print stuff like this anymore. So this gives frontal 500 power to all your trans and housework characters, as well as Hand Encore. When you play the Bar, which is a Taiyaki key holder that also combos with their level 1 Mikon Shimikaze, you can give any one of your characters an additional 2k. This keeps their underpowered Shimikaze relevant even today and goes into level 2. They can still snipe reverses for some small level 2s, tech cards, and other big level 1s. It's just a big reason why the 2-turn is so much more feasible, since the combo is stockless, money counter is 3, which we'll get into in a bit. They can go all the way down to no stock going into their attacks and still be able to threaten looping combo again. Really strong card, something that you should try to get rid of or maybe bounce to stop them from being able to Hand Encore their field if you trigger a wind or something like that. Really important card to try to deny their value if you can. Okay, so money counter, Project Darkness. This card is errata. Before I get into anything about it, it works exactly the way a money counter you would expect. Just your basic money counter, a little bit of extra power on top to make up for the fact that it is a 3/3 instead of a 2/3 counter like in Sal. This is the big reason why To Love Ru can 2-turn. Because Yami has draw 2, ditch 1 on play, and they're probably going to play 3 of it. With clock drawing, that's like 8 or 9 draws to get into a single copy of this card, and they usually run like 2 to 4 of it. Basically, all the normal ways to get around this are app like hexproof or siding or anything like that on attack burns. This only really deals with the damage from the card and any on reverse or at end of battle step damage that would come from. Really good against restanders though, so if you're playing a restander combo into To Love Ru, you definitely got to watch out for this. Moving on, we got the Mikon anti-salvage. So this is true anti-salvage, just like in Kontai. This effect is either super good or super bad, depending on what it is being played into. However, all green-yellow To Love Ru decks run this card at high counts because it has on-play mill 3. To Love Ru, like a lot of old decks, has problems with mill. Its deck control isn't the best. So just them being able to slam this card, mill 3, and maybe get into a better next deck is a big reason why you'll see this a lot. So if you're running red or you're running a salvage, you're running doors, that means you're going to see it if you run into To Love Ru. So the big way to get around anti-salvage is if you have to get a plus on a climax combo that salvages, do that on reverse salvage and as your last attack. That way the minus soul doesn't matter. Otherwise, you're just going to have to not plus and not salvage cards. Again, this only works in the attack phase, so any salvages outside of that, whether they are on climax play or during the main phase, are fine and are unaffected by this. Last card here, we have the Yui anti-event. This one's a little spicy. It's mainly for the alien animal deck, which is the other deck, not the green-yellow Yamikon deck. This is a pay one, turns off all events for its opponent, so they can't play any events in main phase, they can't play event counters. If you're a deck that crutches on events, even though this card isn't the correct trait in any way, and they can't grab it off any of their searches or brainstorm or anything like that, because Yami draws so many cards, and this is a level 3 tech card, it's still feasible for them to run this as a one-of and for them to get into it. So if you're a deck that crutches really hard on events, and you see this card flow into their grave or anything like that, make sure you play around it if you can. Don't bank on your events on doing much at the top. Moving into counters, the big two are in the center. We got Money Counter, Project Darkness, as I talked about, and the Nana Anti-Change. The Nana Anti-Change is also off trait. They can't grab it off anything. However, some green-yellow builds do run it. If you see it, make sure that you don't play into it. All the normal anti-change counter strategies apply. Just something to remember. It is a normal ditch 2 card rating room anti-change. Other than that, there is a normal 2K counter, this Maya here. They do have one, as well as the White Cat mode, which is a 2K -1 soul counter, but only for the alien animal deck. Moving into bombing and clearing options, we have this Bond of Trust Lala. It is a Resonate 8K anti-early play bomb. You won't see that one too much. The one you stand a better chance of seeing is this Good at Cooking Mekon. If it attacks at level 3, it gains 3K until the end of your turn, so it will be a 10K cross turn. It also gets 1,000 power for each of their other attacks, so it maxes out at 12, so that's the threshold you're looking to protect your early plays. Common builds, the Yamicon bar wind build is by far the most popular. All the things I talked about, the field encore, the big level 1 Shimakaze, the 2 turning with money counter, and the aggressive cancel burn pushes for games with Yami. Big reason the set is still around is because of this green-yellow build. The other build is the alien animal deck. I'm going to be honest, it's pretty lackluster. You probably won't see it unless someone just really likes Momo or the sisters or that kind of stuff. It is more of like a meme waifu deck than an actual deck. Just to wrap up here, you can level lock to your Lovru. They don't have a real Ricky. However, they do have multiple self-clock effects, but they're usually when cards get reversed, the most popular one is. So just make sure you play around that if you're trying to level lock your opponent, but it is very doable for you to lock them. Anti-change counters, bombs, and clears. The Mekon clear is definitely the one you would see the most if you see it at all, but the Nana anti-change counter could be around. So just make sure you keep that in mind when you're going into your early play turns. Most popular build, like I said, Yamicon 100%. Big reason that you still see 2 Lovru at all these days. And the most valuable card, Yami. It's what lets them 2-turn, as well as probably the 1/1 back row. That field encore, super strong. Getting into that, the set is super strong at looping combos over multiple turns with the field hand encore. The fact that they can tap all the way out at their finisher, they can have no stock going into their attacks, and still be able to consistently threaten money counter, as well as another turn of attacks, so long as that they have hand. That is really, really good and can be really scary. So just make sure you keep that in mind going into the finishing turns. Unfortunately, like all old sets, is very bad at milling itself out when it is in bad deck states. The big reason they play that sitting Mekon, just to give themselves some sort of deck speed. If they're in a bad deck state, you can probably just delete them. It is pretty bad for them to get out of those situations. It's also really bad at dealing with early play spam. Something like ReZero is a nightmare for 2 Lovru because they can really only answer one lane with a clear type, which isn't good at hard removing things on the field. Other than that, their only way to deal with early plays is to trigger a wind, which is inherently sacky and not something the deck can count on. Set popularity, medium-low. You stand a chance of maybe seeing one. Even though it is stronger than other old sets, it's still starting to show its age, and modern sets can very easily run this deck over. Popularity is quickly waning. And that's basically 2 Lovru. If you liked the video, drop a like or a comment to let us know how we did. That really helps us out. We'll be releasing more Rush Rundowns on Mondays and Wednesdays with our usual deck techs on Fridays. Along with these links that you see on the screen that we drop at the end of all of our videos, we'll also link some sample deck lists below in the description if you'd like a more in-depth example of what you'd see if you ran into this set at a shop challenge or a regional. With that, I think we're done. Pittsburgh White Schwartz signing off. We'll see you all in the next one.